Our recent Appalachian arrival from last night's story quickly found out that there was more to Mount LeConte in the Smokies than just an amazing view when the knocking on the trees and the footsteps with no apparent source started happening. Now, this one is noises while hiking up to Mount LeConte in Great Smoky Mountains National Forest. So, my grandfather has summited Mount LeConte 50 times now. The last weekend was his 50th time, and he is 80 years old now. Impressive, I know. Anyway, I had only been invited 2 times before, this being my third. I'm not big into hiking like he is, and I would not have gone if it wasn't for my 14-year-old cousin that had asked me to go with him. The times I had gone before, I was his age and about 8 years old the first time, so I felt it necessary that I go with him. We got up to the hotel we were staying at on Friday night and planned to hike up to the summit and stay at the lodge Saturday night and hike down Sunday morning so I could be back in Georgia for work Monday morning. We started at the trailhead, the 7 mile one, at about 7:30 a.m. I'm a pretty fit guy, gym every day and running type of fit, so naturally I get ahead of the group pretty quickly as I like to run for some exercise, especially with a weighted pack. I came up to a sign and a split in the trail and had remembered my granddad told me that there was a trail that led to a cliff that overlooked the forest. I had some time to kill to wait for the group to catch up, so I decided to head out to the overlook. It said it was only 1.3 or 1.7 miles from the main trail, so I didn't think it could hurt that much. On that morning, we had forecasts of light showers in the late morning, early afternoon. So if you're familiar with the Smokies, then you know how it looked that morning. Dark gray, very foggy, low visibility, almost like you're inside of a dense cloud while being in a dark forest. They don't call them the Smokies for no reason. Anyway, I start head down this trail, and as I mentioned in my last post I made about my hunting experience last year, I noticed the forest was dead silent, which terrified me because the only other time that had happened to me was up on the ridge at my dad's cabin. And if you read my other posts, you'll know why I was petrified. But I knew I wasn't the only hiker out there, and that whatever it was wasn't any urgent danger to me in the moment. About 15 minutes down the trail, I get to the cliff, overlook, whatever you want to call it, and as I figured, I couldn't see anything. Kind of felt like a waste of time, but then again, I was the only one out there for what I knew a mile and a half, so it was a pretty surreal and isolated feeling. I enjoyed it and disliked it at the same time. I decided that I'd eat some of my sandwich that I had brought up to eat for lunch. I found a good log to sit on that had a view of the forest, so my back was to the cliff. I had just finished eating the first half of my sandwich when I heard a very faint knock. Almost like a tree branch had broken or something hit the side of a tree pretty hard. But it was so faint that I kind of shrugged it off and paid no mind to it. I finished my sandwich and was getting my poncho out of my bag because the rain had started to come. Ponchos are almost like a shower curtain material, so when you're shuffling around with them, it's kind of loud next to your head, so what you hear in the distance might not be what you think. But I was taking out the poncho and thought that I heard two more knocks a little past the tree line to my right. I stopped fidgeting with the poncho so I could hear properly. Another 45 seconds went by, so I continued to get my poncho unfolded and put on. I started walking towards the trail that would take me back to the main one when I knew clear as day that I heard quite a loud knock in the woods to my right. I froze and listened as hard as I could for leaves crunching or anything, but didn't. I kept hearing what sounded like a large branch or stick being smacked against a rock or a tree. It probably knocked another 4 times before I told myself it was time to get back to my group, as I already didn't like the Appalachian Mountains as it is. I'm walking back down the trail and keep feeling like I was being watched or like something was following me or even worse, hunting me. I didn't have any protection with me, as my granddad had convinced me that the bears were not an issue on the trail, as it's taken by people every day, usually lots of people. So I felt very vulnerable and not alone. I didn't want to stop walking and listen because I didn't want something to jump out at me or something. IDFK. I swear I had been walking for at least a mile, so I knew I had to be close to the main trail, but I swear I was hearing slow, heavy footsteps behind me. I kept looking over my shoulder for another hiker or something behind me, but I saw absolutely nothing, and it literally sounded like it was 10 to 15 feet behind me. Creeped me way TF out, so I started to hightail it and eventually made it back to the main trail without incident. Crazy thing is, I wouldn't even call that the weirdest part. As I got back to the intersection, I figured I'd wait for my group to catch back up. I thought about walking down the trail some to see if I could meet them since it was taking longer than I thought. Also, I'll mention that as soon as I left that trail to the main one, it felt like I had walked into another world, almost like the lights turned on. But looking behind me, the trail I had just been on was super dense and dark and foggy. But on the main trail, it had got sunny and misty white while I was in there, almost like hours passed away without me noticing. I finally decided on continuing up the mountain so I could get to the top and check in so when my group got there, their cabins would be ready to walk right on in. About 2.5, 3 hours later of hiking, I finally got to the summit, but my group was already there, which was really weird to me because I thought I had gone pretty far ahead of them as I was even running at one point. I walked down to them and asked them how they got ahead of me. They responded by asking me where the hell I had been. I told them I had taken the trail my grandfather had told me about, but that's it. That I had gone down to the end, ate my sandwich, threw my poncho on, and came back. They had told me they stopped for lunch at the split in the trail just in case I had gone down the trail and waited for me to link back up. But they said they waited for what felt like over an hour and assumed that I had continued on to the top. They also mentioned that they had been up at the top for another 2 hours waiting on me and were about to send someone for help to go searching for me. This totally freaked me out as I knew for sure how long I was gone. It was absolutely not hours, more like 45 minutes max. I don't know how to explain this, and they all just think I had gone on multiple different trail splits exploring and was lying about it. Not sure why they'd even think that, as I'm not an avid hiker like that would take. I really need some of you guys to tell me what the hell was going on with me up there. I've looked up knocking and missing time, but mostly only comes up with missing time being related to aliens. But seriously, WTF? Can't be aliens, are we for real? Has to be some sort of explanation here, right? Please help me out. Well, this would not be the first and it won't be the last report of incidents like tree knocking and loud, heavy footsteps that you can't find the source of. Just look at the history of Jeticola Rock if you want. There, as far back as the Cherokee, the indigenous people, there were reports of large, hairy, hominid creatures. I'll just leave it at that. But that's definitely why this is a companion to last night's story. The submitter, again, wants to remain anonymous, but I do thank you for your submission, for letting me tell your story. That's been Jay's Haunted Appalachia for tonight. Keep sending me your stories and suggestions, guys, and keep Appalachia haunted, y'all.